Joining us this morning on AM 1400, 93.3 FM KWON for a special community connection. I get the opportunity to talk things over with Senator James Inhofe. And first of all, Senator, thanks for joining me today. I know we got a lot to talk about.
Well, we really do. Today's a very significant day. Can I tell you three great things that are going to happen today?
I like great things. What's going on?
All right, listen to this. First of all, we're going to sign the tax bill, the first great tax reform we've had since the Reagan administration. Secondly, the president's going to sign the veterans bill that we passed that we will have a chance to talk about. And the third thing, this is December the 19th. This happens to be Kay's and my 58th wedding anniversary. So those are three things.
Yeah. I'm not sure which is order of personal importance, but first of all, congratulations on the wedding anniversary. That's a milestone for you.
Sure.
And we received a very nice Christmas card from your family, as we do every year, with some family photos in it. And, it just looks like a happy family, and I'm sure things are.
Well, they are, except we need to start having more babies. All of our grandkids, it's time they get married and have babies.
I understand. I helped my granddaughter celebrate her second birthday last week.
Oh my goodness, that's great.
Let's
talk about the tax thing, because that is huge. There's a independent group called the Tax Foundation that makes an evaluation. They're not Democrat, Republican. They're all economists and all that. And they have said the bottom line in the state of Oklahoma is the average family of four is going to increase their income by $2,000 a year. Now, if you start looking at the components of that, you have the corporate tax rates coming down from 35 to 21%. Standard deductions, that's everybody out there, are going to double from $6,000 to $12,000, and for married families from $12,000 to $24,000. Now, Charlie, that's huge. Child tax credit, that's going to double from $1,000 to $2,000. Estate taxes are called the death tax. Now, when you get out in western Oklahoma, that's one of the huge issues out there, because I've had people at town meetings I've had in Shattuck, Oklahoma, and elsewhere, where they'll actually be crying, saying, we're going to lose our family farm. Well, they're increasing that now, doubling it from the exemptions from $5 million to $11 million, and then for spouses also, it's $11 million to $22 million. So all those things, you start adding them up, and you can see you're fitting into one of those categories where it's going to be dramatically good for your family. And so this is exciting. Can I say one thing that I have to get across, and yet it's something that's the hardest thing in the world to explain?
Please do.
The Democrats are all going to oppose this, and they're going to oppose it, and they're going to say this is going to increase the deficit. Well, if you stop and realize in the 80s, in 1981, I was not in the position I'm in now, but I was around. I remember it well. In fact, I've given this in speeches. I've memorized the numbers. The total amount of income, the revenue that came into the United States in 1981 was $469 billion. Well, Reagan, that year, it was 1981, he came out with a huge tax cut. The top bracket came down from 70% to 50%. And that caused the revenue that came in to increase from $469 billion to $750 billion. You see, that's the one thing that everyone overlooks. When you do a static analysis of this, then you can't take into consideration what happens to the economy. Well, specifically, what happens to the economy is for every 1% growth in economic activity, EGP, that increases revenue by $3 trillion. Now, let's look at what happened during the Obama administration. It was 1.5% growth for the entire 8 years, 1.5%. Already in the second and third quarter, the ones that Trump has the control over, with the taking down the overregulation and all that, it has increased to over 3%. So just stop and think about what already has been realized from just the activity that they've had in this administration. So I know people don't like the guy. People say that he's brash. People say they don't like his tweets and all that. But let me tell you, when it gets down to rebuilding the military that was disarmed during the Obama administration and with the over-regulations. And by the way, if anyone wants to know about these over-regulations, my what is it called? My website. Yeah, I've got a helper here with me. My website is www.inhofe.senate.gov. Now, you've got that because you've announced that before on your station. But I have a document that shows all of the regulations. There are two ways of stopping regulations. One is through executive orders, and Trump has now done 51 executive orders to do away with overregulation. And then the Congressional Review Act is the other way that lets us pass a bill to do away with a regulation. We've done 15 of those. In fact, the first one that this president did was my Congressional Review Act. And so if you we'll send you a document of actually listing all of these regulations that have been done away with.
I have a copy of that pulled up, starting with the SEC rule book requiring oil and gas companies to disclose their playbooks.
Oh, that was mine, yeah.
Yeah, that was, you've been on that one since about, what, the early 2000s, 2001?
Well, that was a regulation that was put in by Obama early in his administration. It says if you have a domestic oil and gas company that is competing with China or somebody else, we had to disclose to China exactly how we arrived at all the details, the playbook of that, which puts us at a disadvantage. So I introduced and that was the first one the president signed. In fact, that was the first signing ceremony we had with President Trump. So we've done away with that regulation. Good memory there.
Well, thank you very much. Now, some of these executive actions I know have been well publicized. Others maybe not so much. But when you talk about Keystone XL or rebuilding the military, those are some key ones there. Some of the others, I think the H-1B visas, people may or may not understand the implications of those. But these are generally some pretty big actions.
Well, the steam buffer zone rule, it was one to completely do away with coal mining. Now you get it's a ways over there from us in Bartlesville, but you get over to the Poto area, and I'll be talking to them next. They're very excited about this because we're a big coal state, and people are not aware of that. So that was one of the rules. The BLM rule that blocked oil and gas development on federal lands. That's one of them that we're overriding. Here's one that is kind of interesting. It's called the rule mandating federal standards for evaluating teacher performance and a rule establishing a national school board. Well, you know what that's all about.
Sure.
We've always cherished the local control of schools. Liberals don't believe that. They want all of the control in Washington. And you know of the folks that are out in rural areas in Oklahoma and throughout America, the rule that they found most offensive and that they're most excited about changing is the WOTUS rule, which you and I have talked about before. That's the waters of the United States. The waters have always been a state jurisdiction, and the WOTUS rule under the Obama administration changed that to a federal jurisdiction. So if you go out to the panhandle of Oklahoma where it's arid, and after a big storm, there might be standing water for a day or so, then that would be justification for the federal government to come in and take over with a whole set of bureaucrats the regulation of our water system in the state of Oklahoma. So that's just one of all of his tax. Yeah, be sure to get that. Have our listeners come into my website, and we'll send them a copy of that. They'll be excited about that.
I'll post that link on our website along with the audio from this interview. Senator, I know you've been busy on Veterans Affairs issues, and I want to at least talk a little bit about some of the legislation you've passed there, because you and Senator Langford worked together on that one.
We did, and Mark Wayne Mullins. The three of us did that kind of jointly. We were all distressed. It was December 15th. December in 2015, there's an article that came out in USA Today that singled out Oklahoma and the poor treatment that our veterans were getting. And we immediately checked in, and we found that they were right, and we started making changes, and we found we had to change the law to make this happen. And one of the things that was done was we had the administrator in Oklahoma City and in Muskogee was doing a lousy job. Both of them were. So we had to come in and fire them. We had to come in with it's called a VISN. This is a level of authority in the Veterans Administration. And to do this, we passed two pieces of legislation to make sure that we were getting at the problem. One of forces the Veterans Administration to take with them, or we can supply with them, an outside entity to investigate regional facilities. Now, it's not that we don't trust the Veterans Administration, but to have them have to take someone with them that's going to look at their conduct and look at the conditions, it's something that was very good and needed, and we had to pass a law to get it. The second thing is we passed legislation that I believe this is going to be signed tonight by the president, and it would be it's called the Enhancing Veterans Care Act. And this is the one that uses the outside entities. We also have the Veterans Choice Act that was enacted in August that gives access to veterans to private care. And then the other one was additional firing authority that would allow, and this was enacted by Trump on June 23rd. This law will help the secretary fire employees for misconduct. Now, those pieces of legislation were necessary, and the results are there. We've now gone up from a 1-star system in Oklahoma to a 3-star system, and we'll be at the top before this is over. So we can celebrate for our veterans right now. Good things are happening.
It is good things that are happening for our veterans, and I think as we increase the number of veterans that are in the system because of everything since 2001 coming up to today, we have to also look at the fact the president is asking for increased manning levels in each branch of the service. So
now we kind of separate those out. There are two different issues. One, taking care of our veterans, which we are doing, but the other is rebuilding our military. This is something that we talked about for a long period of time. I don't say this really critically of Obama, because Obama is a proud liberal. A liberal is someone who wants to concentrate the power in Washington. And they're in their hearts, they really believe that that's the right thing to do.
Yes,
and so they don't really believe, and have never been strong advocates of our system, of our military system. As I mentioned, when you tell people that 62% of our F-18s can't fly because of what they've done in not maintaining properly during the 8 years of Obama, all that's changing right now, and we're going to make America. Here's the other thing: and you might remember this because I was there when it happened. In the Ukraine. The Ukraine is where our troops, the 45th in Oklahoma, just returned from. They spent a year over there, and I was over there twice, as a matter of fact, visiting with them. And I happened to be there at the time of the last parliamentary election in the Ukraine. The President Poroshenko was very, very proud because in that election, for the first time, Charlie, in 96 years, there is not one communist in the parliament in Ukraine. Now, that really upset Putin when that happened, and he started going in and killing the Ukrainians. And so we on the Armed Services Committee wanted to send defensive weapons over there so that they could defend themselves. After all, the reason they had that election so successfully is they love us, and they love the West. So anyway, we now are fulfilling that commitment that should have happened way back after the parliamentary election in Ukraine. So we've lost a lot of the image that America has had and I think honestly that this administration is reasserting us as the leader of the free world again. And I think we lost that for 8 years.
As far as the tax votes, the House and Senate voting this week.
No, today.
You're voting today, and you feel confident that you're going to get at least the 51 votes you need.
I am. I think this morning you're going to see any minute now the House is going to be voting on it. They'll send it immediately over to the Senate, and so this should take place late this afternoon. Now, I'll be giving a talk about 2 o'clock Tulsa time on the Senate floor, kind of outlining a lot of this stuff. The vote should take place tonight, and the president will sign it immediately after the vote takes place. It could end up being tomorrow morning, but I think it's going to be tonight.
Well, what a great Christmas present that'll be for the country.
How about anniversary president?
There you go.
Yeah, well, and I do want to wish all of our listeners a Merry Christmas. You know, it's going to be great. This is a lot of exciting things are happening right now.
They are, and I think it's largely due to the work, at least to what we've talked about today. You and the entire Oklahoma delegation working as a team in each chamber, trying to get things done.
Yeah, that doesn't always happen. That doesn't always happen. People look at Oklahoma and say, "How do you guys all get along so well?" And we have a lot of talent. They're all conservatives. I know this upsets a lot of the liberals out there, but get a life. You know, if you're a liberal, you can always move to New York or someplace.
It's not one of your committees, but do you have any schedule on when confirmation will take place for Congressman Bridenstine?
Well, no. The problem is, and I'm doing everything I can, and Jim Bridenstine will tell you that, but he has a couple people who don't like him, and one of them is from Florida. And it goes back to the fact that Jim Bridenstine was supporting Cruz in the presidential race, and Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is still. In fact, I talked to him in the cloakroom not too long ago, and I said, "Is there any chance you change your mind and support Bridenstine?" He said, "No." I called Bridenstine and told him that, but we thought we might. If that's the only one that on the Republican side that's going to oppose him, then he could be confirmed. If there's any more, he would not have the votes for confirmation. So I can't answer the question as to when, because we wouldn't want to take that up unless we knew we had the votes to pass it.
I certainly understand that. Just with us here in the 1st District, it is something that we at least try to keep an eye on.
Sure.
And Congressman Bridenstine, of course, has said that he would be stepping down at the end of this term regardless, but I think he is well liked here in the district, and people would like to see him move on to a mission that he certainly, I think, would be well qualified
I think
for.
he's well qualified for it, and it's also it's a huge mission that we're very much involved in, to head up NASA, to reestablish our position that has been lost also. It is significant. He is qualified for this. He's the one who should do it. And by the way, the seat that he holds right now was the seat that I held when I was in the House. So that he'll be replaced there, but hopefully he'll make it to the NASA.
Well, Congressman, Senator, happy anniversary to you, and we look forward to hearing you again sometime after Christmas.
That's great, and Merry Christmas to everyone who's out there listening.
Thank you very much. Senator Jim Inhofe this morning on AM 1400 KWON. Thank you, Senator.
You bet.